All righty. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We'll just let people trickle in, but please let us know who you are, where you're calling in from, and what you do. I'm Evelyn Clark, and I am calling in from the lands of the Coast Salish and Squaxin peoples, now known today as Olympia, Washington. Good morning, good afternoon.
I'll go.
Oh,
Hi,
yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you can go and then we'll have individuals put them in the chat as well.
okay.
Yeah, but go
Um,
ahead and tell us. Yeah.
my name's Christy Twilley. I work for the Tennessee Association for Alcoholism, Drugs, and Other Addiction Services, as well as I am a holistic practitioner in my community. I am looking forward to hearing what's going to kind of unfold today, and I'm glad to be here. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much. Um, all right, so we're gonna get started today. Thank you all. This is our PACT session, which is Peers and Clinicians Together, brought to you by NTTAC, the National Technical Training Assistance Center for Children, Youth, and Family Mental Health, NTTAC for short. And just real quick, our disclaimer today is that today's presentation does not reflect our federal funders. Just in case there is a security issue today, we will end this call and we will send you a new link. And NTAC. So we are made up of these wonderful partners across the US, and we are the team that will provide you services through our center. So again, what our vision and services are is all children, youth, and families living with and impacted by mental health challenges will have access to the resources and opportunities they need to thrive in a comprehensive and equitable system of care. And here you'll see that we provide lots of different technical assistance tools. We have sessions like today with PACT. We have individual consultation. We do podcasts, all different sorts of things. So make sure that you go to our website and sign up for our newsletter. And then today you will get a copy for being in attendance. So look for an email. And if you do not get one, there's information on how to receive one. All right. So this month is Mental Wellness Month. And so that is why we have our topic picked today. But I don't mean to put my colleague on the spot, Ashley Singleton, but if you would like to talk about this, because I know it's something you brought to our center, that would be amazing. If not, I can definitely speak to it.
No problem. I'll be really quick. Like you said, Evelyn, this month is Mental Wellness Month. We've been offering activities all throughout the month that highlight mental wellness. And it can mean so many different things to so many different people, right? But overall, it's about feeling good, and it's not about just like the absence of illness or avoiding stress. It's about having a sense of purpose, enjoying your work and play, fulfilling relationships, just that overall feeling of happiness and joy. And so we want to uplift that this month. And on the next slide, you'll see a couple different reasons why it's so important for folks like us who work in the mental and behavioral health workforce. Mental wellness, when we promote it and we prioritize it, it helps to prevent burnout. It helps us with our personal and professional growth because it kind of opens up this space where we want and receive learning new things, and best practices. It allows us to have empathy for maybe the folks that we serve, the families and children that we serve. And I think one of the most important things about mental wellness and prioritizing it is that it allows us to model healthy behavior for those children and for those families. When they see us doing breathing exercises or doing some stretches or writing in a journal, maybe that'll encourage them to do the same. So we want to just continue to promote mental wellness. You'll see on the next slide that we have a few more events that are happening this month. If the next slide can be pulled up on the slide on the screen, that'd be awesome.
That slide is not with us, but it will be in your follow-up email.
All righty, on the follow-up email, you will see that we are going to have a vision board session on Monday. And then later on in the week, we're going to talk about fatherhood, and fatherhood and their role in wellness in the family structure. So lots of really great content, but most importantly, make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Because you can't give anything that you don't have, right? So that's all that I have to say about that. Evelyn, it's okay if you put me on the spot. No sweat. It's all right.
I thought so, but
Thanks, Evelyn.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, we're definitely want to incorporate this in our offerings throughout the year for PAC. So thank you. All right. Well, we can move on. Oh, okay. Again, yeah, welcome to today's session. So looking beyond therapy is redefining health through holistic wellness. So we did our welcome. We're going to do our grounding by our special guest today. And then we're going to walk through some of the presentation, and we're going to spend most of the time with questions and answers from our fabulous panelists today. All right. So again, I'm Evelyn Clark. I lead the PAC sessions on the NTTAC Center, and I also work for one of the partners on the center, Change Matrix. And I'm super excited to have our special guest here today, Lane Krumpos. So I'll allow her to introduce herself, but I just wanted to say I've worked with Lane for I don't even know how long now, but it's been a while. Her and I both worked as peer support providers in Washington State, and we did a lot of work who were involved in the incarceration system, and have watched her done some amazing work when it comes to implementing mental wellness for our young people. So super excited. And Lane, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Evelyn. I am so excited and honored to be here today. Evelyn is not only someone who I started this work with as a peer, but also have grown with and have seen her grown. And so it is so fun and just brings me joy to be able to be here and see us together in the space, and also seeing you all introduce yourself in the chat, how many peer specialists that we have. It is beautiful. That's where my heart is. Evelyn has said this before, I'm sure you've heard it. It's not my lived experience, it's my living experience. And so I know for myself, regardless of what space I'm in, I honor that. And I hope that you all come into this space and honor that as well. Take off, just your professional hat and allow yourself to wear all other hats. I know I'm a mother, I'm a community member, I have my lived experience, and I'm also a professional in this. And so all pieces of my identity, I hope you'll allow me to bring into this space along with you bringing yours as well. That's the essence of this. And that's also our wellness in every area we touch. So please, jump in on this experience with us, ask great questions, and looking forward to being here today.
Thank you. And yes, if you could please kick us off with our acknowledgement, that would be amazing.
Yes, absolutely. So if you haven't already, I saw in the chat several of you acknowledging the Native and Indigenous lands and what you are calling from. If you're unaware, I do want to encourage you to be aware of where you are sitting today. And with that, I'm going to do a land acknowledgement, but I'm also going to do a labor acknowledgement as well. To start us off, I do want to say for our land acknowledgement, we see these a lot, and it's one thing to be aware. It's one thing to acknowledge the land you're on, but it's another thing when you really acknowledge the history, the eradication of people, their land, their indigenous historic land, the language, the culture, and more. It's even then another thing to be aware of the current day struggles individually and as a collective of those impacts of eradication that Indigenous people still face and fight. Several of those impacts in which we touch within the systems we work within and partner with, we see it show up every day through generational poverty, underfunded healthcare systems, systemic violence, and so much more. So I encourage you to not only identify the land that you reside on, but I want to challenge you to take yourself a little bit deeper than that and to educate yourself what is currently happening within your community, what ways in which advocacy efforts, local Indigenous tribes, and other people are fighting for. Challenge yourself to continue to be aware and use whatever power resources you have to help restore those historical Indigenous Native lands, values, languages, and more. So while it's important for us to acknowledge, I think it's the accountability within as a member of our community to keep showing up and to learn and to be aware of what efforts are happening and how we can support and amplify those. For our labor acknowledgement, I do want to acknowledge the Office of Multicultural Affairs. I love this labor acknowledgement. It's one that I think is very much true regardless of where we're at. We recognize and acknowledge the labor upon which our country, state, and institution are built. We remember that our country was built on the labor of enslaved people who were kidnapped and brought to the U.S. from African continent and recognize the continued contribution of their survivors. We also acknowledge all immigrant and Indigenous labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples who contributed to the building of the country and continue to serve within the labor force. We recognize that our people is continuously defined, supported in our country, that our country is continuously defined, supported, and built upon by oppressed communities and peoples. We acknowledge labor inequities and the shared responsibility for combating oppressive systems in our daily work. I really just want to, again, that challenge. We acknowledge labor inequities and the shared responsibility for combating oppressive systems in our daily work. Thank you, Evelyn.
Thank you. All right, well, let's continue to hear from you, and then we will begin a conversation with everybody.
All right, thank you. So a little bit about my why when it comes to wellness. So I have had my own journey through being a peer with lived experience, working within systems and alongside systems in which I was impacted by. Having that experience of working in the same community in which I grew up in, and I had seen harm and felt harm both from the community and an individual level. I had seen at a young age and learned the ways in which, and Evelyn, like, I cannot wait to get in conversation because you were a witness alongside that journey and also experiencing it. The ways in which I know I was unintentionally trained to compartmentalize those feelings, compartmentalize whether it was grief or hurt or harm, and how to then shift this balance of when it comes to resiliency. That's a word I very much struggle with. But when you institutionalize and you also honor everyone's lived experience, there's no need to compartmentalize. Really, what we need to do is bring that light and that experience and that true value. I know something I stand true to this day, working within several systems, especially juvenile justice, and some of the people I worked with, where I could see this numb feeling of, I just have to shut it off. That's how you survive. I have to be numb. And I remember making that promise to myself, I'll never be numb to this work. The moment I become numb is when I need to stop showing up, because that is my why. That is my story. That is so much of who I am. And so when I support other organizations of how do you institutionalize self-care, really it is about, it's not just, oh, go take care of yourself, take a bubble bath after work. Like, that sounds great. I'm also a single mom of 2 kids, balancing, there's life things also. But when we can institutionalize and embed wellness into our systems, that's a different experience that allows us to show up as our full self. A couple strategies I know for me that I have used. I had shared this with Evelyn. I call it my ABCs. A is always acknowledging. I know when I'm activated and I acknowledge what is my reaction from in this place, because working alongside systems and with partners, there's sometimes language that is used that feels very insider outsider, where when I have that lived experience, it's almost that defense of, you're talking about somebody or something or a community in a way that hurts and is causing harm. And so for me to be able to acknowledge that emotional experience in myself, but then B, have a balance in the boundary of, how do I set a boundary in this situation? How do I protect my own heart, but also do it in a way where we can dive into that conversation so I'm not putting my own wellness, especially when it comes to my lived experience, at risk of harm. And then 3 is connection. That is something very just authentic to who I am, is we need to connect together. We need to find ways to connect and communicate to where we can collaborate, especially when I think of the peers and the clinicians and who's coming in with what experience and why it matters. There's so much opportunity for connection and collaboration, and also being very intentional about what that looks like. And so that is something I know for me, that is a system in which I use for myself, and I support my team. I support those I work with. How do you embed a system to where individuals have that support, but then also as a collective, you share that collective space as well? I think in general, we live in a very individualistic world, and can be very siloed, not world, country, and we be very siloed in our work, in our efforts at times, especially when you're coming in with someone with lived experience or as someone with lived experience, versus shifting to that collective space. And how do we really work from a collective, honoring all those pieces of our identity, regardless of your role? If you're a peer support, a director, I think that lived experience has a place everywhere. Redefining resilience. So I love this quote. I think that when I picture resilience, I had somebody, I just was talking about this other day, and I shared the example of, if you think of a backpack, right? And we all have our backpack. Maybe a struggle or experience you go through, you're putting a stone in your backpack, right? And that backpack starts to get heavy and heavy, but you're still pushing through, right? You're becoming stronger, you're increasing those muscles. And however, to acknowledge that some people in their experience, in their life, and where they come from, are born in with a backpack with some stones maybe in it. And so how do we honor and respect that resilience is something that also can be redefined and challenged in ways of, I know for me, hearing like, oh, you're so resilient, that didn't always feel good, because it's like I had no choice to be but to be, that's survival and this, and so it just can overlook the experience, especially when we look at our Black, Brown, Indigenous people of color and our experiences, those experiences in which, if you haven't lived that life, walked that walk, you can't really connect in that way as far as what that resiliency is and how to redefine that, especially if you're working in that space of collaboration and connection. And so letting people be kind of the owner of what resiliency means to them is really part how you embed that wellness. Evelyn, I would love, if you have, I know, I want to open it up for questions, comments, and discussion. And also, I shared some experiences in which you and I had shared together. So if you have any thoughts as well that you want to add to, please, I would love to have that opportunity as well.
Yeah, yeah. We can take down the spotlights and just have, there we go. Okay, there we go. That way it's open. All right. Hi, everybody. Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. Yeah, I definitely know over the years, especially in peer support, which we know is a different kind of support. And so how we would instill a lot of mental wellness was things that a lot of clinicians didn't think would be something. And so, like, for example, we did a lot of like youth voice initiatives within the youth prisons. And even just with the young people we were working with we worked with young people who were in a program, a wraparound program. And so we worked with them in their homes, in the community. And a lot of the things we would do, we would take them to like community council events or get them involved in leadership opportunities. And so I remember when I first started working in this role, there was a clinician who was like, I don't understand how that's treatment. And the youth was like, that like being a part of this meeting about system change is one of the most empowering things I've ever had. Like he had stated that he had a sense of belonging, and this young man had just gotten out of a psychiatric inpatient facility. And so then it kind of, I think, when Lane and I started doing this work more, then it kind of started to be implemented more into treatment planning, which was great. So sometimes we don't think about, right? I think when we hear mental health or mental wellness, we just think, okay, therapy and coping skills and, which are obviously essential. And if we know that, especially for our Black, Indigenous people of color, young people, we have to, we have to think outside of the traditional tools and things that we've been taught and really look at what is mental wellness for, these young people? What is mental wellness for young people who are incarcerated? What does that look like? Because we know being incarcerated, there is no mental wellness there. I mean, just the environment itself. So how can we be creative to come up with these different strategies while we are serving young people? So again, just bringing them into things that create a sense of belonging, getting them involved in things. I know from the work we did in Washington, it is now a national model. So we have young people who are incarcerated who who present on webinars like this. I have brought in young people and, to really help teach the workforce and just what that brings to their own mental well-being is just super powerful. So that's what I'll share.
You want to open it up for questions, thoughts,
Yeah, I
talk?
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I haven't been seeing any questions, but
I could give
um,
another example of
yeah.
something that I know we've seen as peers when it came to differences in values. We could talk about, community harm and violence and the way in which, especially Evelyn and I, with our lived experience, our connection to the community, when we'd have a loss, whether it was homicide, suicide, overdose, there's ways in which that's my community accountability to show up, and also just that love for the community, and then having moments of being told, oh, that's not professional to maybe go to the service or to do those things. And again, being kind of put in these boxes in which that's not how we operate from our full human self. That's one of the reasons why when we do the work and we receive that, it's hope. It's hope when you have that lived experience, you're in the community, and a youth or a family can really see and recognize you don't just show up when you're getting paid, but you show up because you're a community member too, or you're a fan, whatever it may mean to them. And that's a different experience of love on both sides. And also, everybody grieves differently. I don't have that expectation of anyone, but I know for me, that was my accountability to my community and the individuals that I got to work alongside and even live alongside within that city. So I know Evelyn and I had multiple experiences of that and balancing, that professionalism when you're a peer and this and those different kind of things we're taught when it comes to compartmentalizing the identities we hold. Any other? What are their thoughts? Speak up. We got a lot of peers, we got lots of system partners in here. Where have you seen partnership, whether it's with peers or clinicians or your wellness? Yes, Darby.
Well, I think just speaking on what Evelyn said about, especially working with youth, thinking outside the box. I know I'm from a rural small town in Illinois. I grew up here. I'm working in peer support now, and kind of spearheaded a youth-led organization within our community for our teens to provide personal care items and support to their fellow high school students. Giving them a voice in it, helping them advocate for their peers. I think, the general population kind of, not that they turn a blind eye, but they don't know really what some of these kids struggle with, especially in our town. So I think giving these kids an opportunity to make a difference in their community we've seen the benefits of it, even extending into like the middle school and the elementary school, and them kind of forming their own groups. But yeah, I think looking beyond therapy is the big picture, and getting creative.
Something you said that I think it resonates and connects in different ways, right? What Evelyn shared on when we worked in juvenile justice and how we continue to amplify those voices. There's two pieces, and it's like the hope and the purpose. A lot of times our youth don't feel a sense of purpose or hope, especially when so much that's happening in their life is out of their control, especially when we're working with incarcerated individuals. There's such limited that you have options and control. So when you can provide an outlet to have purpose with your community and helping others, that's a form of hope. And so instilling hope in whatever way you can that's relevant to your community is something I know it gives them voice, it gives them reason, teaches them advocacy skills, all of those things, and which are all yes, leadership, raises good, beautiful humans. And so I love to hear what you're doing, especially your way of connecting to your community and understanding and letting them lead that work. It's beautiful. Chrissy?
I just kind of want to speak on, my camera's kind of weird on this one. So I just kind of want to speak on the fact of not only being in the community, but being one of those survivors, one of those teenagers that had to go through all those things and didn't have the resources that we have today, and was always a little bit more of the meditative spiritual type when there wasn't that kind of thing. And to see it now, it just really just gratitude and thank you. And I'm just so fascinated to learn about all of this, because I've worked in the field now for almost 4 years, and I'm just now touching even the edge of some of the holistic practices and some of the breath work and things that are really a game changer for a lot of people. And then on top of that, to be working with so many different cultures and so many different backgrounds is just, it's very needed. It's very needed.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah. You, she, her. Thank you both for hosting. It was really impactful to hear this today. I am new to being a peer mentor, and I also really loved the way you phrased, I don't have just lived experience, I'm continuing to live through my experience and my experiences. And I just, again, what someone has also said, just like, thank you, because there is so much language that I can't always convey to the people I work with, and I continually work on that with my like fellow peers or my fellow musicians or my siblings or my neighbors or whoever. And I love that. I think for me, what working as a peer means is like we all get to contribute so much strength to where we are. And now with Zoom, we get to like elevate that and connect much broader. And I'm just like 3 weeks in now, but like my mind's exploding. And yeah, just like want to say it out loud. Like I just feel so much intersectional wisdom with what you shared so far. And I really believe that you do this in your day. You're not just saying it right now, and like you really live this. And I also feel grateful to be a peer, having lost my sister to a really like challenging life that she faced. And there are ways in which I think both of us were frustrated that this various systems would call her resilient, and that wouldn't help her find ways to persist. And we can talk about death another day, but I think just like thank you so much. And I just look forward to networking more, because I really believe there is a power in the people when we get together and talk about this. And you could say power to the people in any language, and I think we'd all understand and have a lot to gain. And I feel that way. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. One thing, there's so many things you said that resonated with me, and I like goosebumps. And something I hope, especially your 3 weeks in, that you always remember, this goes for all peer specialists. I know when I first started as a peer and Evelyn was alongside, I shadowed her, learned from her, and she has always modeled to me, because I remember asking, there's nowhere really for us to go. There wasn't that roadmap of where do we go after being a peer support specialist? Like, then you're a lead, and then what? Like, what happens? And one thing she has continued to model to me is everywhere you go is peer. Like every position you're in, if you stand true to that, like there's always going to be opportunity. So whether it was me working directly as a peer support specialist, working with, in transition when you've come in out of facilities back into the community, there's always a space where your lived experience and what you learn from that work as a peer is embedded. Being a director, supporting others and encouraging them, show up fully. Even if you don't connect, like there's experiences you have to offer, and show up fully. And so I think that, and even system support, you can work with systems and help encourage them to kind of break away from, those systems that have done a lot of harm to communities by having these ideas of what is best practice or professional, and allowing people to be their full selves and really reach the heart and get the work done. So Evelyn, like, you are a testimony to modeling that for me, and I appreciate you so much, because I know I've been able to embed that, and my hope is that everyone in here knows, like, you can do anything. Always keep that peer part true to you. Evelyn, do you want to add anything? Sorry, I'm so excited about this conversation.
No, you're good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Yeah. All right.
Next, Jamila. I hope I said your name right. Please tell me if I didn't.
Yes, it's Jamila.
Jamila.
Yeah, so I am joining in from St. Louis, and what we are doing over at Project Launch that's supporting the resilience in our community is through the Parent and Vitality Cafe platform. And so I don't know how many of you all practice cafes or have any experience with being a cafe participant, but it's a platform that for adults, and it caters to their peer-to-peer support through which is been like evidence-based for how adults learn, which is from other people's experiences, right? So we all get online and we ask people to take off their professional hat if they're professionals and just kind of just show up and set the like the agreements for that Zoom hour to be a safe space, no judgment. And some people are showing up on Zoom where they feel like they're unsupported with mental health. Maybe they don't have a counselor. So come into a platform with other people, like it's something in their resilience to know that you are not alone, or that someone else has been where you are or shared that same experience. And so everyone's on there like sharing their stories. And it has just been so like it has just been like so beneficial, like to the community. Like every time we meet, we have at least 25 to 35 people on each Zoom. And just from them having those 3 conversations, active and practicing active listening, has been like people feeling like it's their therapy. And it just shows that from our human connection, stepping away from all the noise and just honing in and sharing like, oh yeah, this is my story. And this is what I did when I was in that situation. And somebody else could hear that and say, you know what, I might be able to try that too, or feel motivated or inspired to change and say, you know what, that person got through that from doing this. So, you know, I can too. Even as a facilitator, I'm leaving feeling like inspired. And so, it's the chat is blowing up. Okay, shout out to Big Strong Families for cafes.
I would love to, if anyone has questions for Jamila, like, please do ask. This conversation for all of us, because that model, it does shift from like, therapy is not just individualistic care. Like, that's not wellness always for everybody. It is that collective, and that model, like you said, that's community healing, that's community love, all those things. And especially as adults, we don't get a lot of opportunity to really connect with each other outside of our work, our day-to-day, we were kids maybe, but to hold a space where community members can come together and just be real with each other. It's a beautiful gift. It's a beautiful experience also, I'm sure, to facilitate and see. So people have questions. You have a lot of people wanting information.
Yeah, so Be Strong Families is the name of the organization that somebody Carolyn put in the chat. Their website is bestrongfamilies.org. Look them up on Facebook. On their Facebook page, they host like nationwide, worldwide cafe platforms that you can just register and be a part of. So our organization has been trained, and we like VCR. They train other like service providers on how to do cafes. And so under our Project Launch grant, we host the cafes for the community. And so there's two cafe platforms. One is the Parents Cafe, and that's geared to those parents and caregivers taking care of young children. And we've discussed 5 parental protective factors. And the thing I love about being a parent is that it doesn't matter what your race or ethnicity is. Having a 2-year-old is hard as heck.
You can say that,
And
yeah.
so it's something that unites us, but there are like 5 protective factors that we speak on each time. Well, not each time, but we may choose like 2 of them to discuss, and they come with like question cards. And those protective factors are like those ingredients that every family needs to build a strong family. So the first one is, guess what? Resilience. Stress is going to happen as a parent. And so it's like inevitable, right? But when we have those discussions, everybody's sharing their experience, so it's helps. So it's resilience, relationship, knowledge of parenting and child development. Parenting does not come with the handbook, but the science behind child development is so helpful to parenting. Another area is concrete support and the social and emotional competence of children. How do children learn? It's from the adults and having loving relationships with adults that model and also help them to express themselves. But then the other, so that's the Parent Cafe. The other platform is the Vitality Cafe, and that's actually geared towards your health and wellness of everybody. And so those are centered around 6 domains. So that's your physical health and well-being, mental and emotional, your financial, social, the environment, and the last one is spirituality. And the thing that with spirituality, when we're talking vitality, it's not religious based. It may be for some, but the platform is just open and non-judgmental. That spirituality can also include your creative expression, art, music, whatever is keeping you full of positive energy. And so that's just a little bit about I love cafes, and it's been really a driving force for the community, because we can't make everybody go see a counselor, but hey, maybe you might want to just chat with a group of peers and get what you get out of it.
I love that. Another piece I see with what you're sharing as far as the protective factors go, we know that the best way to decrease our risk factors is increase protective factors. And I also think when you're someone who has lived experience, you're a testament to that strength as far as how do we embed those protective factors? How do we support, amplify, uplift, and acknowledge? Because you can have all the risk factors in the world, but to still pour into someone's strengths and encourage those things, I know for me, that feels more hopeful when someone meets me in that place versus my risk factors are trying to think they know what was traumatic for me and what wasn't. I want to be the one who decides that versus them deciding that. So when you focus on those strengths, it helps empower people. So it's just beautiful work. I love it. Thank you for sharing. There's lots of love for cafes. I know we've done cafecitos before too. Similar, just catching up in the chat. Any other questions? I saw a couple of hands go up and then go down. Questions, comments? Yes, Sarah.
Hi, sorry to jump in again. I was just struck also with like what both of you are saying. I felt a lack of trusting my intuition when I was going through things with a therapist or at a facility, and that now I really do get to remain in touch with my intuition, or just like values I know to be mine now and really true and healthy, and also can provide safety for others. And I think my point is being told as a peer in the first few weeks, trust your intuition. It's like so funny how challenging that can be. And so I can imagine, I am white, I'm cis, queer, whatever, but depending on, no matter who you are, having doubted, and maybe like my experience is mainly with psychosis, but I have a lot of like like I'm sober 2 years, da da da, so we could talk forever. But like it's really challenging to trust your intuition and be okay and accept hearing someone say that. And so I hear that in what you were saying, Lane, and also what Jamila was saying as well. The individual and community intuition feels really important. And I really see that from the peers that I've worked with or like learned from as well. So yeah.
I would love, Evelyn, can I share the experiences around trusting intuition, making a decision maybe we were told not to make around siblings talking to each other? Do you know? There was an experience, Evelyn and I, when we were working in one of the detention centers, where we had a youth who had been charged as an adult, and he was in the facility and had no contact with his family at that time, or limited. And then his sister, who continuously kept getting in some forms of trouble and getting put in the same detention center. And her drive was she wanted to see and talk to her brother, and even if it was just passing through windows. And me being her peer, Evelyn being his peer, we were very much told to respect boundaries and things. And we were very creative in how can we still allow them to talk to one another. And that experience is what helped keep her out of the system, was him being able to guide her and protect her as a sibling should. And that was our intuitive nature of what these two need in this experience that feels so isolating and lonely, is each other. There wasn't, and I'm not saying go against, like that sounds really bad, I'm not saying that. It was something that, and we did talk to some of the clinical staff, and there was conversation, and at the same time, knowing that they were not at risk of harm to one another, any of those things, it was more so just around navigating how do we help them. That is their family. And that was what drove her to, try and make better decisions and do those things with response to her brother. But really that came from an intuitive place of our lived experience. Also our deep connection with this family. This is a family we had worked with for a long time. We still stay in contact to this day. So I think that intuition piece is really hard, and still encouraging you to talk to your team and your supervisors. So any other questions or comments? Oh, I just saw something. I'm curious how people feel who go into this work that don't have similar lived experience. It's all about empathy and listening. For me, I referred peers. So Evelyn and I have experienced this a lot in our work. I'll share, there's one young man in particular that we've talked that he's just incredible. Evelyn and I have both worked with him, and I wasn't the best fit. We didn't share that lived experience. I didn't connect in those same ways, but I also had my lived experience kind of on the flip side of what he was involved in. And so as being a young woman who as a youth did and engaged in a lot of harmful behaviors and exploitation of myself, my body, my mind, my peace, all those things in which I was not taught how to protect or how to value. And it was very much my own responses to my own trauma. And then his side of views of women who were engaged in similar activities and experiences, we were able to connect, and we were able to have still deep conversation from an appropriate peer level. And it helped shift some mental models for both of us, and him understanding some of the things he was engaged with and how and why to maybe step away from those, and understanding the experience of young women, men, not to sound binary in that, but those who are engaging in those things, and to have some more understanding of maybe their why of expressing. And again, like it was an exploitation of myself through those experiences. And so that was an example of how we still connected. Our experience wasn't the same, but there was able to offer different views and experiences that helped think a little bit different on our impacts. And then there was other moments where I just knew I wasn't the best fit, but I didn't make that decision. I let the youth make that decision. We had very honest conversations on, is this working for you? Because if not, like, it's about you. So if you're not getting anything from this, like, I want to connect you to someone who can. And I think it's similar with our own self-help. We want to know that, we're getting our needs met. And so letting them really be the lead and that driver is something I think is a value of mine that I would encourage. Evelyn, do you want to add to that?
Sorry, my mute. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to add to it, but I think, yeah, everything you said definitely supports the mental wellness of who we are working with for sure.
Autumn, I see your hand up.
And I think that you like phrased everything so beautifully. I don't know how much I have to add. But I know for me, like working as a peer, having lived experience, you know, sometimes I will have someone who, you know, they are like referred to me, set up with me because we have like on paper really similar lived experience. And oftentimes I feel like those relationships can like almost be a little bit more challenging. Because as much work as I like have done in processing and healing, like sometimes hearing that experience that's so similar can, you know, like bring up like really intense thoughts and really intense feelings. And I feel like having someone whose experiences are slightly more different, like having that level of separation, it can be easier to like really greet someone like with curiosity and with like total openness. And I think it can be a lot easier to like put some of those like preconceived notions aside that we don't even realize we have based on our own lived experience when we're you know, interacting with someone who like is really reminiscent of ourselves.
Yeah. I love that. And I also think with that lived experience piece and relating or not relating, at the end of the day, again, it comes down to what for myself, like, I don't want to be defined by my trauma. I don't want to be defined by the decisions I've made, good and bad. I want to be defined by my strength. I want to be defined on the ways in which I have, you know, worked really hard. And those are the experiences in which in our youth and our families that we work with, it's the same thing. And you can always connect from that place of strength and meeting them where they're at and amplifying, you know, for some, they'd be like, oh, I would really like it if you can make it to school every day. I'm like, I'm just so happy you walk through the door. Like, you know, it's like, if that's a success for you, that's a success for me. That's a strength. And that is the lived experience in which, regardless of your stories aligning, you're still pushing through an experience that is really hard. And at the end of the day, no two stories are going to be the same ever. Chris, I see your hand up.
Yes. However, I just want to say I've been doing peer work both as a family peer advocate and as a peer support specialist for most of the last 20 plus years. And I do think, yes, there's going to always be people who maybe it looks like you have a lot of similar experiences and you don't really click and it's harder work to find where and how you connect. And other people that you just connect with easily, and it could be more around, you know, it could be an age thing. That's why youth peer advocates are so important. But so as someone older, it could be as a parent who, you know, we have the same favorite song from high school, and it doesn't matter that our lived experience through the mental health or addiction system is not quite the same. And I think that because there is no magic formula, I think a lot of it just goes to that integrity piece. So like I did a lot of general work with a lot of people with a lot of systems involvement, and I had been investigated by child welfare, but never had my child removed. And I worked with a lot of families who had child welfare and protective services involvement. And I remember one woman just being like, you never lost your kid, don't even talk to me. Like, you know, it was just, even though we had a lot of similar other experiences. And so I think that if you're working somewhere generally where you're going to have people with lots of experiences, I was a good fit and that worked. But ethically, once we started hiring family peers like to work specifically with a child welfare population, for me, I had learned I had not had my child removed. To me, just ethically, I wouldn't even apply for a position like that because that core pain and a part of that experience I didn't have. So I didn't feel like I would have been a true peer. So I think that there's some stuff around this that in terms of the roles we're going to fill and the places we are going to be, I think just doing some of that for ourselves is really important in terms of putting this out there as a peer when we might not really be, because we know it, and we shouldn't be trying to present ourselves as we are just because there is another part of the lived experience that's similar. I don't know if that all made sense.
Yeah,
That
does make sense. And again, like the diversity in the individuals you partner with and on a cultural level, on lived experience level, on all the things is so important because you need to leverage those strengths of one another. I know for me, I don't have personal experience being incarcerated. I have the experience of family being incarcerated and navigating that as a family. And so when Evelyn and I worked together, she'd work internally and then I'd work with families, essentially losing your kid to the system and working on the community side. And there was shared work always. You have to. And we understood like that is something, an experience, unless you've walked through, you can't speak to the same way. And that's okay. It doesn't dismiss what you've been through. Like that's still relevant. And there's a place for that. And so thank you for sharing. That is very important. Okay, I see Jacqueline's hand up.
Hi, I just wanted to touch on at the beginning. I think this is huge with juveniles. I was watching something yesterday, and there was this girl at school. She was a juvenile. She was drinking, and I just felt like she got attacked. And if she had an outlet as a peer support to go in and not be attacked by everyone, because there is reasons why we do drink and use. So I feel this is huge because had she had somebody, everything could have gone so much of a different route than the way it was. I mean, literally attacked, but yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of our why. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I know for me it's my own, those situations. If I would have had somebody, who's like, I've walked that walk, like I'm here to walk it with you, would have helped me feel a little stronger. And also like I've seen that at firsthand and unfortunately like lost kids in many different ways. And it is hard. Like that's a feeling that again, we talked a little bit about grief, like in how as a peer, like I was told compartmentalize. I can't do that in this work. I can't, I don't want to. I feel like I have good boundaries within myself, but I don't want to lose that because at the end of the day, like that's why we show up, because we understand the implications and the community impact if we don't have those types of support. So thank you for sharing. LaTonya?
It does get stressful. It does get stressful. And a lot of times I swear every single day, sometimes I just want to give up. And because sometimes you yourself get stressed out and then you feel like a fraud trying to tell somebody else how to get better when you yourself can't get better. So I mean, I completely feel it. I mean, as a peer, we get traumatized by other people's trauma a lot. And then a lot of people just like, well, you need to suck that up and keep going. You can't keep giving out and emptying your bank for others.
Yeah.
Without taking care of yourself.
I appreciate you for speaking truth, because that's exactly what that is. And I think that's what everyone needs to hear, because I'd be shocked if people haven't hit that point or will hit that point. I know for me, there was a time and a place after I had my second baby, I was like, I need to step away from direct service for a minute. I need to do more systems level work. It was just, there was a level of pain in which that vicarious, if you haven't heard the term vicarious trauma, dive into it, learn and see how it is showing up in your heart and in your work, because it's hard to not have that, especially when you have that lived experience or you are a compassionate person who shows up fully. Like I like to think I am. But I did have to step away, and now I have a balance and boundaries in what I do as far as my direct service goes, and what I do in my day to day, because I know for me, I used to have to drive. I lived an hour away from where I was working at the facility to just decompress, to go from work mode to mom mode to process, and to take that time, and I just drive in silence, sometimes not even knowing I'm driving in silence. That's not a thing I do usually. I'm a music person, but it was just like my mind and my heart, everything. I needed a place to stop, and it was really hard. So I know I had at that point of boundaries for myself, because at the end of the day, like I got two babies at home waiting for me to show up for them, and conserving yourself. And so I hear you. I hear you, and that feeling of like I even got to do the work for me too. I don't think that stops. That's why I say it's not my lived experience, it's my living experience. Like I still go through it. And that's okay. Thank you so much for sharing. Ebony?
Okay. Sorry, I'm in a robe because I'm still on maternity leave. So I'm working virtually. But this meeting, I didn't even know I needed it. I've been setting up for all these meetings before I go back to work. And I work as a family support specialist. So I support a family or I support families with young children. And I just want to say that I love that we're getting more into giving space and opportunities for youth to have a voice, because as a child growing up, you're always told children are seen, not heard. And so you are not to say anything, you're just to be there, and not allowing yourself to have feelings. And even sometimes I'll hear my husband say, if my son falls, you're okay, you're fine. And I'm like, but is he? Is he okay? Like, ask him. He's 2, but hey, are you okay, buddy? And asking the question so that he's free to share if he's okay, and not allowing someone to tell you how you feel or how you're supposed to be when you're in that moment. And so starting it as young as 2, when they're forming the words and forming feelings and emotions and being able to identify, no, I don't feel okay, or no, I didn't like that. It's important for us to implement that young, because when I was growing up, I was told to be seen, not heard. And so I was told I was okay when you fall, you're okay, but maybe I wasn't. And so I love that we're being so aware that kids do feel that they aren't always okay, that something that may be small to you is big to them, that maybe that didn't hurt you, but it could have hurt them. Because we're individuals, things affect us differently. And so allowing a child as young as 2, or maybe even nonverbal, to express what they're feeling will allow them to do that as an adult. And so unmuting our youth is so important. And I just love this space, and I love that I got into this meeting, and just thank you so much and for being so articulate. You're doing an amazing job, and I feel good right now. So thank you.
Oh, well, I got goosebumps. What you just said, I just wrote this down with your name so I can quote you, but unmuting our youth, like the ways they've been told and taught, especially depending on what systems they're within, to be silent, like they don't have power, and how do we restore that? I think that's our accountability as adults, and to unmute. That was beautiful. And also our kids being sometimes our greatest teachers. I know for me, I live this, I've worked it, but my own babies, like that's a reflection. And so I appreciate that so much. I don't know if you saw in the chat, the breaking cycles too, like that's what you're doing. That's what we're all doing here in this space. I know we're coming close to time, I believe, but that was amazing. I could continue this conversation all day. I so much appreciate those who shared, those who listened, those who showed up with your time. You're what creates this space. And so thank you for that and allowing me to share it with you.
Awesome, 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 Lane. Thank you so, so much. Everyone, if you could put some kudos in the chat for Lane and Evelyn for this amazing presentation, especially also that last bit with the unmute the youth, that part, whew, if I speak. Children are often experiencing the world for the first time, and I feel like we just forget that as we get older. But I digress. Thank you so much for being here today, you all. You will get this recording in the follow-up email along with a certificate of completion. And we have so many other recordings on YouTube as well from our PACT sessions, other people that Evelyn has brought in that have amazing presentations as well. Please don't forget to complete our survey. Let us know how we can better serve you, what topics you want to hear, what we can bring to you to, get the word out, get awareness out. We are just so happy to have you here, Lane. Thank you so much. I'm pretty sure we're gonna see you again. Please don't forget to follow us on social media. Check out our upcoming events. We have 2 more events for Mental Wellness Month that will be outlined in the follow-up email. Here is more of our contact information here. And again, SAMHSA's mission is to reduce the impact of substance abuse and mental illness on America's communities. Thank you all so much for being here with us. Have a great day. And don't forget, your resilience is your own, as Lane pointed out. Don't let anyone else define it for you. Have a great day.